All right, so for number 45, we factor out a 2. We write out what's factored. I'm going to only focus on the 4x squared plus 13x minus 12. But again, the 4 is in the front. That means I'm going to have to divide by it, okay? So let's do the x method here. So 4 times negative 12 is 48. And on the bottom, I'm going to put a positive 13. So the two numbers that multiply to a negative 48 add up to a positive 13 would be a positive 16 and a negative 3. Okay? So 16 times 3, bless you, is 48. 16 minus 3 is negative, positive 13. If we make the 3 negative, we get a negative 48 when we multiply. But I don't want to just circle those answers and be done with it because there's a 4 in the front, so I'm going to have to divide by 4. Okay? The right side is just going to stay the way it is. There's nothing to simplify. But on the left side, this is a positive 4. Okay? So my answer is going to be 2 times their factors. So it's going to be x plus 4, x minus 3/4. But remember, if you have a fraction, you got to get the bottom and push it towards the front. So you're going to move it up. So it's 2 times x plus 4 times 4x minus 3. And this is your answer for number 45. Okay, so these are a little bit on the tougher side, especially since you have to divide at the very end. But I mean, if you practice them, you'll remember. Okay, and if you don't remember, this is a good problem to show on your notes, right? Use highlighters or colors or something to kind of emphasize that 4 in the front. This is why we divided, right? We divided because of the 4. So make sure you make notes for yourself so that you know, like, why did we do this? Don't just write the work and not understand the process, right? Leave notes for yourself. Then we did this. Then we did this. That way, when it's time for you to do it in a test, you're walking yourself through the problem instead of just trying to remember what happened, right? So I know it takes a lot more work to do that, guys, but that's kind of the way it works, right? When you study and you make yourself notes, you have to do that kind of stuff. All right. 46 is 2 terms, okay? It is a subtraction. So my main job here is to try to figure out, can I write it as something squared minus something squared? Now, the 4 is pretty easy. That's just a 2 squared. But the other one, the 9x squared, well, 3 squared is 9, and x quantity squared is x squared. So that's going to be my something squared minus something squared, right? 3x squared minus 2 squared. So the process is to create your two factors. You put your 3x in the front, you put your 2's in the back, and you put minus plus, and that's it. That's all you have to do for number 46. Okay, so very straightforward. You're not really doing too much of an x method or anything like that. You can use the x method for this problem. It just gets a little weird looking. So, um, but it's possible to do the x method with it. Okay, it just looks weird. I'll even show you real quick. Don't write this down unless you want to. But notice 9 times negative 4. That's 8 times c. That's negative 36. And my b value is 0, right? So then it's going to be a positive 6 and a negative 6. But then you actually can, when you write this stuff out, you can divide things out based on the number. It's by a 9. So, right, there's a 9 in the front. So divide by 9. You get negative 2/3, positive 2/3. So here are my answers. So my factor would be x plus 2/3, x minus 2/3, but move the 3's in the front. And notice it's the same answer. I know it's kind of flipped, but it's the same thing. So you can do it using the x method. I just don't recommend it. It's a little weird. If you can remember the difference of two squares property, it's so much easier. Okay? So, but I mean, there's two options for you there. All right, number 47, solve each equation by factoring. Now, number 47 is factors. So all you have to do is just write x plus 3 equals 0. X minus 7 equals 0. So this gives you a negative 3 and a positive 7, right? Because you're just going to subtract 3 and add 7. Right? I'll show the work just in case someone's not here. So we'll subtract 3. And here we'll add 7. So your answer is going to be D. Now that one we didn't have to factor. It was already factored for us, so we just do the work. Now 48, we do have to factor. Now notice 48 is a difference of two squares, right? So something squared minus something squared equals 0. Well, x squared is just x squared, and 4 is just 2 squared. So this factors to x minus 2, x plus 2 equal to 0. And now you set each little factor equal to 0. So x minus 2 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. So add 2 to both sides and you get x equal to 2. Right here, subtract 2 on both sides, you get x equal to negative 2. And your answer would be B. Now I've been asked, could I just plug in the numbers like 1 and negative 8? Can I try and see if they work? Is that okay? Yeah, it's multiple choice. I mean, do what you want to do, right? Easier always to do the process, but I mean, you can always try doing things by elimination, right? Like try A, try B, try C, etc., and eventually find your answer. All right, let's look at number 49. So 49 is an X method type problem. Thank goodness they don't have an A term other than a 1, so I don't have to worry about division. But let's do a X method for this one. So this is my A, my B, my C. So A times C, that's negative 5. Okay, and on the bottom is a positive 4. Okay, now two numbers that multiply to negative 5 that add up to 4 would be a positive 5 and a negative 1. And I can circle these because of the fact that there's no division that has to occur. So my answers would be x plus 5, x minus 1 equal to 0. Now separate each one and solve each one individually. So x plus 5 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0. So if you subtract 5 on the first one, you get x equal to negative 5. Now notice, once you did that, you could actually choose C because there's only one of them that has a negative 5 as an answer. Okay? And then the other one, we can add 1 to both sides. So we get x equal to 1. So it would be C. Negative 5 and positive 1. Now guys, for number 50, okay, for number 50, the one that's coming up, you are allowed to use calculators, okay? So for some of these, a calculator would be the best option, okay? If you go to your calculator, and if yours doesn't do square roots nicely, just borrow one of mine. Mine do them nicely, okay? If you're not sure if yours can do the following, then just borrow one of mine. But if you go to your calculator and you type in negative square root of 8, it should automatically spit out negative 2 radical 2. Now, if you're wondering how that's done by hand, this is how it's done by hand. So negative square root of 8, you have to rewrite it as a product of two numbers, but one of them has to have a square root. Well, 4 times 2, 4 has a square root. The square root of 4 is 2, so it's going to go out, and then you leave the other number inside. And that's how you do it by hand. Okay? But if you have a calculator, you can just punch in the numbers and you're done. Okay? So that's number 50. Number 51. It looked like I gave you guys a lot of room here, but number 51, we're just going to subtract these. Okay? So I am going to have to distribute that negative, though. So let me write this out. 3 plus 2i plus 2 plus 2i. Well, 3 plus 2 is 5, And 2i plus 2i is 4i. So 5 plus 4i is right there. Now I have been asked before, 2i plus 2i, why doesn't that become 4i squared? The variables only change powers when you multiply or divide. Okay, it's the only time they change powers. Other than that, they stay the same. Okay, so that's number 51. 52, we're going to have to distribute. Okay, so negative I times 6, well, that's negative 6i. Okay, by now you should know your answer is D, because that's the only one that has a negative 6i. But if you didn't notice, negative I times I is negative I squared. But what is I squared? Negative 1. So this is negative 6i minus a negative 1, which is negative 6i plus 1. And the way they like to write it here is 1 minus 6i. So there you go. Remember, sometimes once you do something, check your answer, see if the stuff shows up, because if it's the only one that has that, then you're done, right? You don't need to do any more work. All right, 53. Same concept. We're going to multiply. So negative 4i times a negative 2 is a positive 8i. Okay, so what's my answer? A, right? Well, at least that's what I think so for now, but it looks like it's going to be A. Now, negative 4i times a positive 8i is a negative 32i squared. I squared is negative 1, so 8i minus 32 times negative 1. That's a positive 32, so 8i plus 32. They always like writing the number in the front and the I term in the back. So yeah, it was A. All right, so there you go. These next ones look like they're going to be a bit of a hassle. They're saying that they want us to use the quadratic formula, okay? So use the quadratic formula to solve x squared plus x minus 6. All right? Now, a student asked me, do I have to? Well, no, you don't have to. You could actually factor number 54 and do it just like the ones we did, okay? But number 55, you may not be able to factor. Who knows, right? So it really just kind of depends on what you're given. So let me zoom in. Because this one I can factor, but what if the one on your test you can't? So I don't want to show you like a different way to do it, and then you're like, well, that's not the way you showed us, right? So let me show you how to do this using the quadratic formula. So ABC, it's a 1, 1, and negative 6, okay? Now, quadratic formula states that x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all that divided by 2a. Okay, so my b value is a 1, so it's going to be negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 6. All of that divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 1. Let me move this up really quick. Okay, so that's what I get so far. Now, I have to simplify the inside of the square root. So x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared is 1. And negative 4 times 1 times negative 6 is a positive 24. And then the bottom is just a 2. Well, 1 plus 24, that's 25. And what's the square root of 25? That's 5, right? So negative 1 plus or minus 5 over 2. So all I have to do now is find my two solutions, okay? So one of my answers is going to be x equal to negative 1 plus 5 over 2. The other one will be x equal to negative 1 minus 5 over 2, right? Plus or minus. So negative 1 plus 5 is 4 over 2, so that's a 2. And the other one, negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6 over 2, so that's negative 3. So my answers are 2 and negative 3. Okay, so now I'm going to go back, and that's C. 2 and negative 3. Now, could I have just factored this normally? Yes, I could have. Okay, like I said, on your test, I don't remember if there's any of these that you can just factor. Maybe you're going to have to use this process. Okay, so we'll do number 55 using the same process, okay, just for practice. I mean, if you want to, you can try doing it the other way, and if it works, great. But if it doesn't, then you wasted time, and now you got to do something else. So here we go. My ABCs here, okay? A is 2, B is 5, and C is 2. I'm kind of zoom out and go to the right. Excuse me. So I have X equal to, again, I like to write the formulas over and over again because it helps me memorize them in case I forget them. Just by repetition, I'll get it back into my head. So my X value here is equal to negative B, which would be negative 5 plus or minus the square root of B squared, that's 5 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is 2 as well, all over 2 times A, which is 2. Okay, so again, just plug in your numbers and just be careful. Take your time with this because it's so easy to mess up with these problems. Okay, so easy. So just be careful. So X is equal to negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared is 25 minus 4 times 2 times 2, that's 8 times 2 is 16, over 4. So negative 5 plus or minus 25 minus 16 is 9. And the square root of 9 is what? 3, so plus or minus 3 over 4. All right, so let's solve. So my two answers are there. One is plus, one is minus. Okay, so X equals negative 5 plus 3 over 4, and X equal to negative 5 minus 3 over 4. So if you do both, we get negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2 over 4. So that's a negative half. Okay. And then the other one, negative 5 minus 3 is negative 8 over 4. So X is negative 2. So I'm looking for a negative half and a negative 2. And that would be B. Notice if the square root of 9 was not a nice number, then my answers would look like either A, C, or D. Like there's going to be like a square root there for you. Okay. But for us, it simplified, so it was easy enough. All right. Remember, we're trying to get to 59. We got 4 more to go. I don't know what the next 4 are. Let's see. Hopefully they're easier. So, oh, okay. This is going to be real easy. Graph each number in the complex plane. Let me just remind you. A plus or let's say A plus B. I. That becomes an A comma B as a point. Okay. If it's like A minus BI, that's just A comma negative B. All right. If it's a negative A minus BI, that's just a negative A comma negative B. Right? Like just follow the signs, stick with the letters, okay? And if it's a negative A plus BI, then that's just going to be a negative A and a positive B. So what's the point that I have right here? Negative 5 minus 2i. What should I write? Negative 5 and a negative 2. Right? Follow the symbol. So you guys should know how to graph negative 5, negative 2. It's not A. Is it B? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 down. Yeah, it's B. That's 5 to the left and 2 down. And that's it. That's a pretty easy problem. So thankfully, that was given to us. Are we okay with that one? I'm guessing the next one is going to be to convert back. Good. All right. So number 57, they say, here's the point. Tell us the way it looks as a complex number. So what you're going to want to do is figure out what point that is. So -2, -4? -2, -4. Yep, -2, -4. So the way you write that is -2 minus 4i. So it's A. Too bad there's not 70 of these, right? It'd be nice. All right, last two. Oh, this one is not too bad, and neither is that one. So good. All right. 58 says, name each polynomial by degree and number of terms. So the highest power is a square. Is that linear, quadratic, cubic, quartic, quintic? What is it? Quadratic. And it's only one term. So it's that monomial, binomial, trinomial, polynomial. Monomial. So I'm looking for quadratic monomial. A. All right. So next one says state the maximum number of terms. Now, if you don't remember, I'm going to write it down for you guys. Max number of terms is your degree minus 1. Well, what's the degree of number 59? 4. And 4 minus 1 is 3. So the maximum number of terms is B. Okay, so you're just doing 4 minus 1, which is 3, right? This 4. Let me make sure I highlight it because I don't want you guys to think it was this 4 right there. It's the power of 4. Okay, and then just subtract 1. All right, so there you go. You guys have homework tonight 60 to 70. That's 11 problems. Let me make sure I do that subtraction properly. That's 11 problems total, okay? So we did one extra problem for 3 days. If you guys have any questions on this, let me know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through all 11 tomorrow. We'll see. 60, 61, they're not terrible. 62, 63 should be pretty easy. If you don't get it, don't feel bad. I'm saying in terms of doing the work in class, like me doing it, it'll be quick. And I'll explain how it's done. If you're like, I don't know why you're saying it's easy, that's hard. But 64, 65, that's going to take some time. So is 66 and 60. Well, actually, not 66, but 67 will. 68 might. And then 69 and 70, they shouldn't, but, you know, sometimes explaining it is a little bit harder. So I think we'll be okay. I think we can do all of those tomorrow. So just do your best, guys. Do what you can do. What you can't, just leave it alone. And, you know, when I go over it in class, if you need extra help, just ask. Okay? So since we're done, go ahead and get your devices.